The clock ticked 6:42 p.m. over the Atlantic skies. Flight 292, a routine passenger flight from New York to Los Angeles, had just crossed into mid-air cruising altitude at 34,000 feet. Passengers were relaxed, some asleep, some watching movies, and some scrolling through their phones. Everything seemed perfectly normal. But in seat 12A, a 20-year-old aviation student, Emily Carter, stared out the window with a strange unease. She wasn't just any passenger. Emily had been training as a private pilot for 2 years. Her father was a retired U.S. Air Force colonel, and from childhood, she could recognize the hum of an engine by its vibration. Suddenly, she noticed something off, a faint vibration through the cabin floor. It wasn't turbulence. It was rhythmic, mechanical. Her instincts whispered, "Something's wrong." Then it happened. A loud bang echoed from under the left wing. The plane jerked violently to one side. Drinks spilled, babies cried, and the cabin lights flickered red for a moment. The intercom buzzed. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing a minor technical issue. Please remain seated." Before the captain could finish, the aircraft tilted sharply. Oxygen masks dropped. The sound of alarms filled the cabin. Beep, beep, beep. People screamed. But Emily didn't. She unclipped her seatbelt, grabbed the armrest, and looked at the emergency display near the galley. Her pilot-trained eyes recognized what most passengers couldn't: left engine failure, and the right engine was overheating fast. She stood up, ignoring the flight attendant yelling, "Ma'am!"
"Sit down."
"I can help!" Emily shouted over the chaos. "I'm a pilot." The flight attendant froze, unsure what to do, then nodded desperately. "Cockpit's locked. Captain's not responding." She screamed. Emily ran forward through the chaos, every step shaking. She reached the cockpit door and pounded hard. "Captain! Co-pilot, it's Emily Carter, aviation student from Air Fleet Academy. Respond!" No answer. Only static through the radio. Then, a faint sound came from inside the cockpit. She tried the emergency override handle. Locked. But her training kicked in again. She remembered the manual code for cockpit override, known only to trained personnel in emergency simulations. Her father had taught her once, half-jokingly, never thinking she'd need it. She keyed in the sequence. The door hissed and cracked open. Inside, smoke, flashing red lights, and both pilots unconscious. One had a bleeding temple, the other slumped over the controls. The aircraft was descending fast, altitude dropping, 27,000 feet. 25,000. 22,000. Emily gasped but didn't panic. She pulled the captain aside, slid into the seat, and took the yoke. Her hands trembled for a moment. Then her father's voice echoed in her head. "Calm saves lives, Emily. The sky listens to calm hands." She steadied herself, grabbed the headset, and called, "Mayday, mayday, mayday! This is Flight 292. Pilot incapacitated. I repeat, pilot incapacitated. This is passenger Emily Carter. I have limited flight training. I'm taking control." There was static for a few seconds, and then a calm, deep voice replied, "Flight 292, this is NORAD control. We copy your distress. Identify your current position." Emily's fingers flew over the instruments. "We're 180 miles east of St. Louis, descending uncontrolled. One engine lost, second overheating." The NORAD operator paused, then said something she didn't expect. "Stand by. U.S. Air Force interceptors have been scrambled to assist. Keep the aircraft steady, Emily." Emily exhaled sharply, sweat dripping down her forehead. Fighter jets? She wasn't sure if that meant help, or a potential shoot-down order if the flight veered off course. Behind her, the passengers were crying, praying, recording messages on their phones. Emily knew hundreds of lives now depended on her. She switched to autopilot. Error message blinked. Manual control only. The storm radar flashed red. A thunderfront forming ahead. "Of course," she whispered grimly. Lightning flashed through the windshield. The plane shuddered, but she refused to give up. Her trembling hand reached for the fuel control, adjusting the mix manually, something even some trained pilots struggled to do mid-air. NORAD came again. "Emily, 2 F-22 Raptors are on your tail. They're monitoring your descent and will guide you through safe airspace. Emily looked out through the side window, and her breath caught. Through the darkness, 2 F-22s roared into view, their afterburners glowing blue, one on each side of her crippled jet. For the first time, she felt a flicker of hope. The radio crackled again, this time a calm male voice with an unmistakable military tone. Flight 292, this is Falcon 1 of the U.S. Air Force. Emily Carter, we have visual on your aircraft. We're here with you. Just keep her level. Emily's heart pounded, but she smiled faintly. Copy that, Falcon 1. Let's keep everyone alive tonight. The F-22 pilot replied, That's the spirit, kid. We're not letting you fall. And as the storm closed in and lightning flashed over the silver wings of the crippled jet, Emily took a deep breath, ready to face the storm of her life. Because she wasn't just saving a flight. She was rewriting what courage looks like, at 34,000 feet above fear itself. Rain slashed across the windshield like bullets of silver. Flight 292 trembled as if the sky itself wanted to tear it apart. Emily Carter gripped the yoke, her knuckles white, eyes fixed on the instruments flickering with red warnings. Falcon 1, this is Flight 292, she called, voice trembling but firm. We're losing altitude, 21,000 feet and dropping. The fighter pilot's voice came steady through the headset. Copy that, 292. You're entering a supercell thunderstorm. Keep nose level 5 degrees up. We'll mark a corridor through the storm for you. Outside, the F-22s streaked ahead, their wings slicing lightning. Each burst of thunder illuminated the jets like guardians in armor. Inside the cabin, chaos ruled. A mother clutched her child. A businessman whispered prayers. One flight attendant, Maya, moved seat to seat, buckling passengers and whispering, "She's trained. We'll make it." Emily heard none of it. Her world had narrowed to dials, voices, and the violent heartbeat inside her chest. Autopilot's dead. Left engine cold. Right's at 103%, she muttered. Understood, Falcon 1 replied. Throttle back 2 notches. Try to cool her, she obeyed. The plane groaned but stabilized slightly. For a moment, silence. Then another jolt, threw coffee cups and screams through the air. Falcon 2 here, came a second voice. Emily, I see you're drifting north. Adjust heading 180 towards St. Louis. Emily looked out. The city lights far below blinked like distant stars, safety, but still too far. Copy 180, she said. Her breathing slowed. She remembered her simulator sessions, her father's endless drills. Trust the instruments. Fear lies. She centered the attitude indicator, corrected the yaw. The jet shuddered again, but obeyed. Good girl, Falcon 1 murmured over comms, forgetting protocol. Keep that courage steady. Lightning struck nearby, so bright it burned her eyes for a second. Static exploded in the cockpit. The comms went dead. Falcon 1? You copy? Nothing. Only hiss. Then the smell, burning insulation. She glanced left. A small fire had started behind the panel. No, no, no! Emily grabbed the extinguisher from under the seat, yanked the pin, and sprayed white foam across the sparking wires. The hiss of the extinguisher mixed with the roar of the storm. Her heart hammered. The fire died, but the cockpit was filled with smoke. She coughed hard, wiped her eyes, and slammed the vent fans on manual. Focus. Emily, don't lose altitude. She looked at the altimeter, 18,000 feet. She keyed the mic again, praying the signal reached. Falcon 1, this is 292. I've got partial fire damage, cockpit smoke. I'm still flying. After a beat, his voice returned, filled with relief. We read you 292. Hell of a job up there. We've got you on radar. Just hold this heading for another 30 miles. Storm ends in 15. But 15 miles inside a thunder front felt like eternity. Every second was war. Each downdraft threatened to flip the jet. Rain slammed the fuselage like fists. Emily's arms ached from fighting the controls. Then a sharp tone, altitude warning. They were descending again, 16,000 feet. 15,500. Come on, baby, stay with me, she yelled, easing throttle just enough to catch lift. The nose rose, wings wobbled, but they climbed. At 17,000 feet, she finally saw it, a break in the clouds, a pale moonlight cutting through. Falcon 1, I see clear sky. That's your exit lane, 292. You made it through. For the first time, Emily laughed, a raw, shaky sound. Behind her, passengers clapped faintly, thinking the worst was over. They didn't know what still waited below. In the Air Force Command Center at Colorado Springs, giant screens tracked the crippled flight. Controllers murmured data, generals stood stiff-jawed. Civilian in control? One officer asked. Yes, sir. 20-year-old Emily Carter, Air Fleet Academy trainee. Get medical and fire teams to St. Louis, and keep the Raptors tight. A young controller turned. Sir, fuel levels show barely enough for descent. The general's face hardened. Then she's landing on fumes. Back in the cockpit, Falcon 1 re-established radio. Emily, ground wants you to divert to Lambert Field, longest runway east side. Do you have flaps? Partially functional. Hydraulic pressures unstable. Copy. We'll guide you down visually. You're doing great, she swallowed hard. Her throat was raw, hands blistered. The storm faded behind them, but now came the black ocean of night and the approach lights miles away. The F-22s flanked her closer, glowing blue in moonlight. To anyone on the ground, it looked unreal, a wounded airliner escorted by angels of steel. Falcon 1, what's your real name? She asked suddenly, voice cracking. Major Ryan Hale, he answered. You can call me Ryan, kid. Thanks, Ryan. Don't thank me yet. Just land her. As they approached descent, Lambert Field went into full alert. Fire trucks lined the tarmac, ambulances waited, and cameras rolled live across America. Inside the cabin, Maya announced, Ladies and gentlemen, please brace. Our temporary pilot, Emily Carter, is bringing us home. The passengers burst into nervous applause. Some cried, some whispered her name. Emily couldn't hear them, but somehow she felt it. Altitude, 8,000 feet. Speed, 190 knots. Falcon 1, flaps 20. Gear down if possible. Emily flipped the lever. The landing gear indicator blinked. 2 green, 1 red. Right gear's stuck, she said. Understood. We'll inform ground. You can still land. Keep left wing slightly high. Copy. Her stomach twisted. One wrong angle, and the plane could cartwheel. But she pressed on. Final approach, runway 30 left, the tower announced. 292 copies. At 3,000 feet, turbulence struck again. The plane dropped like a stone for 5 seconds. Screams echoed through the cabin. Emily yanked the yoke, full back, throttled up, barely regaining lift. Easy, Emily. Ride the glide slope. Ryan's voice soothed. I've got it. 1,000 feet. Rain streaked again, but lighter now. The runway lights sparkled ahead, blue and white like salvation. You're lined up perfectly, Ryan said. Flare at 150 feet, cut throttle at 100. She nodded silently, tears in her eyes. The ground rushed up. 100 feet. 200. 150. Now flare. Emily eased the yoke. The plane's nose rose gently. Wheels screeched. Boom! Left gear touched, then the nose, then a hard skid as the right gear collapsed. Sparks erupted. Brace! Brace! She shouted. The fuselage scraped the runway, metal screaming. Fire trucks chased alongside, spraying foam. The plane slid, hundreds of feet, until finally, with a bone-shaking jolt, it stopped. Silence followed, broken only by sobs. Falcon 1, we're down, Emily whispered, voice trembling. Everyone's alive. Ryan exhaled, the relief audible. Outstanding job, Carter. You just did what veterans fear doing. Behind her, the cabin erupted in cheers, chants, tears. Passengers unbuckled. Some fell to their knees. Maya burst into the cockpit, eyes wide with disbelief. You did it, she said, hugging her tightly. Emily's hands finally released the controls. They were shaking violently. She looked out the shattered windshield, flames, dying under fire foam, and saw the two F-22s circling once before disappearing into the clouds. Her headset crackled one last time. Falcon 1 to Carter. The sky owes you one. The morning after the emergency landing, headlines across America screamed one name: Emily Carter, the girl who saved Flight 292. Every major network looped the same footage: fire trucks surrounding the smoking jet, passengers cheering, and a young woman, pale and trembling, being carried down the runway on a stretcher. Reporters swarmed Lambert Field, microphones ready. But Emily wasn't there. She lay in a hospital bed, her arms bruised, her face pale from exhaustion. Her father, Colonel David Carter, Rittmeiers, sat beside her, silent. His hardened military face softened as he looked at his daughter, the same little girl who once built paper airplanes in their backyard. When she opened her eyes, he finally spoke. "You did what I trained you for, but I never thought you'd have to do it alone." Emily smiled weakly. "I wasn't alone, Dad. There were two F-22s with me." He chuckled softly, pride glinting in his eyes. "Yeah, the Air Force is talking about that. You're famous." Before she could answer, the door opened, and two men in black suits entered. One flashed an FBI badge. "Miss Carter, I'm Agent Wells. This is Agent Monroe. We're investigating Flight 292. We need to ask you a few questions." Her father frowned. "She just woke up. Can this wait?" Wells replied calmly, "Sir, we believe the incident might not have been mechanical." Emily's heartbeat quickened. "Not mechanical? You mean someone caused it?" Agent Monroe nodded grimly. "Preliminary scans show traces of thermite residue near the left engine, the same one that exploded." Her father stiffened. "Thermite? That's sabotage." The agent nodded. "Exactly. And we need to know, Miss Carter. Did you see or hear anything unusual before the explosion?" Emily closed her eyes, replaying the moment in her mind. The faint vibration she'd felt before the bang, the weird clicking sound beneath her seat, and a man across the aisle who'd stood up just seconds before it happened. "Yes," she whispered. "Seat 14C. There was a man, tall, wearing a gray jacket. He went toward the restroom just before the explosion." The agents exchanged a look. "There was no record of anyone in 14C, Wells said slowly. "That seat was empty on the manifest." Emily's eyes widened. "That's impossible. I saw him. He dropped a small metal case." Her father's jaw tightened. "You're saying someone boarded that flight unregistered?" Agent Monroe nodded, "Or with help from inside." Hours later, news of the sabotage theory leaked to the media. Reporters surrounded the hospital. Hashtags exploded. Hero pilot. Flight 292. Sabotage in the sky. But Emily wasn't thinking about fame. She kept seeing that man's face, blurred, calm, and deliberate, as if he knew exactly what would happen. By evening, she was moved to a secure government facility for debriefing. The same two F-22 pilots who'd saved her were there, Major Ryan Hale and Lieutenant Grace Rivera. Ryan smiled when he saw her. "The legend herself." Emily grinned faintly. "I'm no legend, just lucky." Grace shook her head. "Luck doesn't land a burning jet with one engine. You earned that runway." Then the mood shifted when Agent Wells entered with a file. He laid a photo on the table, a still from the flight's interior camera. "Is this the man you saw?" Emily's heart froze. The face in the photo was clear now. Gray jacket, sharp eyes, expression calm as stone. "That's him." Wells nodded grimly. "His name's Ivan Petrov, a former Russian aerospace engineer turned mercenary. We've been tracking him for months. We think Flight 292 was a test." "Test for what?" Emily asked. "For sabotaging aircraft systems remotely," Wells said, "using EMP-triggered micro-devices." Ryan leaned forward. "So the explosion wasn't from inside the engine?" Not exactly, Wells replied. The device was planted in the avionics bay, hidden behind the cargo panel. Emily's eyes darkened. You're saying it could happen again? Yes. And that's why we need your help. Me? You're the only one who saw the signs early, the vibration, the pattern. You might be able to help us predict the signal pattern these devices create before detonation. Emily hesitated. You want me to go back up? Wells didn't blink. We want you to help us stop whoever's behind it. The pattern suggests there may be 5 more aircraft already compromised. The room went silent. Even Ryan looked shaken. Emily took a deep breath. When do we start? 3 days later, she stood on the runway of Edwards Air Force Base, the desert sun blazing. Before her stood a sleek gray aircraft, not a passenger jet, but a modified Boeing test plane rigged with monitoring systems. Ryan handed her a helmet. You sure about this, Carter? She smiled slightly. After what I've seen, the sky feels safer than the ground. He laughed. You really are your father's daughter. The mission: simulate the same conditions. As Flight 292 to detect the micro-vibrations and frequency spikes that preceded the engine failure. Inside the test cockpit, Emily sat beside an Air Force test pilot. Monitors surrounded her, tracking every pulse of the engines. Ready to lift, the pilot called. The tower replied, Test Flight Bravo 29 cleared for takeoff. As the engines roared, Emily's pulse synced with their rhythm. For a moment, she was back inside Flight 292, the fear, the vibration, the storm. But this time, she wasn't helpless. She was hunting answers. Halfway through the flight, it happened again. A faint vibration under her feet. Her eyes darted to the monitors. A frequency spike flashed on the screen. 2.7 MHz, identical to what she'd seen in Flight 292's black box data. Shut engines to 70%, she ordered. The pilot complied. Frequency stable? Negative. Still rising. Emily leaned closer. They're sending a signal. Someone's triggering a remote link. Suddenly, one of the systems went dark. The screen filled with static. Control, we've got interference. Then silence. The aircraft jerked violently. The test pilot swore. What the hell? Emily recognized it. The same pattern, same pull. She reached for the emergency cutoff and slammed the switch. The vibration stopped. Engine stabilized. The comms returned, and the tower's voice came through, panicked. Bravo 29, we lost your telemetry for 60 seconds. What happened? Emily exhaled. We found the signal. Someone's testing it right now. Agent Wells's voice came through next. Can you trace it? Triangulate from frequency data. Source is terrestrial, she said quickly. Somewhere within 50 miles. Ryan's voice joined in from command. We've got the ping. East quadrant, abandoned airfield outside Lancaster. Emily's pulse quickened. Then that's where he is. Within an hour, helicopters roared toward the desert. Emily watched from the command van as soldiers surrounded the old hangar. Targets inside, someone reported. Then, gunfire, explosions, and silence. When the smoke cleared, the agents emerged with 2 prisoners, one of them, Ivan Petrov. Emily stared at him through the glass as they dragged him past. For a second, his cold eyes met hers. He smiled. You're too late, he said softly. There's already another plane in the sky. Her blood turned to ice. What did he mean? She whispered. Agent Wells looked grim. We don't know yet, but we will. That night, as the stars burned over the California desert, Emily sat alone outside the base hangar, watching a single distant light crossing the sky. She couldn't tell if it was a jet or another tragedy waiting to happen. But she knew one thing. Her fight wasn't over. The sky had saved her once. Now, she had to save the sky. Night cloaked the Nevada desert in silence. In a command bunker below Edwards Air Force Base, Alarms flashed crimson. A voice shouted over the radio. Civilian Flight 810 from Seattle to Dallas just lost contact. Last ping shows control system failure identical to Flight 292. Emily froze. The nightmare had returned. Agent Wells slammed his fist on the console. Petrov's signal wasn't the last one. There's a second transmitter out there. Major Ryan Hale turned toward Emily. You found the first pattern. You can find this one. She nodded, already pulling up telemetry data. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. They've hijacked the flight's flight control module. The autopilot is overriding manual input. The plane's heading straight for Denver, population center, Wells muttered. It's a suicide strike. Ryan looked at her. Then we don't have time for analysis. We intercept. Within minutes, hangar doors roared open. 2 F-22 Raptors rolled out, sleek and lethal under floodlights. Beside them stood a smaller gray jet, a modified trainer with advanced sensors. Emily adjusted her flight suit. She wasn't supposed to fly, but she'd insisted. If I can read the signal in real time, we can shut it down before it reaches the city. Ryan grinned. You're insane, she smiled back. You said that last time. 300 hours. Engines screamed as the Raptors lifted into the night. Emily following in the chase jet, call sign Echo 1. At 35,000 feet, the stars stretched endless and cold. Her radar blinked, a large blip dead ahead. Visual contact in 5, Ryan's voice came. The darkness broke open as the doomed airliner emerged through cloud, its navigation lights blinking weakly. Nose tilted downward. Flight 810. This is NORAD control, Emily transmitted. Do you copy? Only static replied. Ryan's tone hardened. No response. Cockpit likely locked by the virus. On her screens, strange data pulsed. Electromagnetic bursts, the same signature as Petrov's device, but stronger. They've upgraded the code, she murmured. If we jam it wrong, it'll trigger detonation in the fuel lines. Then how do we stop it? Grace Rivera, flying Falcon 2, asked. Emily's eyes darted across numbers. We fly closer, inside its comm field, and sync our jammer directly to the transmitter frequency. Ryan hesitated. That's suicide range. Emily tightened her harness. Then I'll do it. Negative, Ryan barked. You're not combat rated. She keyed her mic calmly. I'm not attacking. I'm listening. Before he could stop her, she pushed throttle forward. The chase jet surged ahead, slicing through cloud, closing on the passenger plane's tail. Inside Flight 810, chaos reigned. The pilots pounded the controls, screens flickering. One shouted into the dead radio, "It's flying itself!" Passengers screamed as altitude alarms blared. Emily's heart pounded. Focus. She matched speed. 280 knots, distance 200 meters. Her jet shook in the turbulence. I'm in range, she said. Beginning scan. Data streamed across her display. Wild pulses, encrypted commands bouncing from an unknown satellite. Source is airborne, she whispered. Someone's controlling it from above. Ryan's eyes widened. Above us? Then they saw it. A faint radar echo, high and fast. Drone, Grace said. High altitude, stealth type. That's your transmitter, Ryan cursed. Falcon 2, climb and intercept. Emily, hold position. Copy. Grace peeled upward, her Raptor glowing like a comet. Emily stayed behind Flight 810, sweat pouring down her face. The vibrations began, same as before. Signal spiking. They're arming the payload, she cried. Emily, back off, Ryan ordered. No, I can jam it if I sync the inverse wave. Lightning flashed across her canopy. She typed faster, aligning the frequencies. Her screen beeped. Match locked. She hit transmit jam. The cockpit lights flickered. Flight 810's descent slowed. It's working. But then the drone above released something. A small cylindrical object that streaked downward. EMP charge. Grace yelled. The explosion lit the clouds in a blinding pulse. Emily's systems went dark. Her jet lost power. Engines coughed, died. Echo 1, respond, Ryan shouted. Static. Inside her powerless cockpit, Emily's heartbeat was the only sound. The altimeter spun down. No, not now. She tried the restart. Dead. Emergency power. Flickered. She remembered her father's voice again. Calm saves lives. She whispered, "Okay, Dad." Calm. She reached under the panel, flipped the manual fuel bypass, an old trick from training. Sparks jumped. Engines coughed alive again. Her screens rebooted, just in time to see Flight 810's engines reignite, stabilized. The jammer had worked. Ryan's voice burst through, choked with relief. "You did it! Flight's under control!" But Grace's voice cut in, panicked. "The drone's diving! It's heading straight for you!" Emily looked up, a dark shape hurtling down like a meteor. "Ryan, I'm out of flares," she shouted. "Bank left now." She yanked the stick. The drone flashed past, missing by yards, then looped around for another run. Ryan armed his missiles. "Falcon 1 engaging target." "Ryan, no, you'll detonate the signal." "Then what do you suggest, Carter?" She glanced at her sensor feed. The drone's antenna glowed red. "Hit the antenna mount, not the body. It'll sever control without igniting payload." He laughed. "You're giving me shooting lessons now? Just trust me." He lined up, steady hand, crosshairs blinking. Fox 2. The missile streaked into the night, a trail of white fire. Direct hit. The drone exploded silently, fragments scattering like sparks across the stars. Cheers erupted through comms. Grace whooped. Ryan exhaled hard. "That's a clean sky." Emily watched as Flight 810 straightened, autopilot releasing. The captain's voice finally broke through radio static. "This is Flight 810. We're stable. Requesting emergency landing clearance." Ryan grinned. "Copy that, Flight 810. Welcome back to the living." Hours later, at Denver International Airport, emergency vehicles surrounded the plane as it touched down safely. Passengers disembarked in tears, waving toward the sky where 3 faint trails still lingered, reminders of the battle above. Inside the control tower, applause broke out as Emily's jet landed behind the Raptors. She stepped onto the tarmac, helmet under her arm, her face streaked with soot, but eyes blazing with pride. Agent Wells met her there. "You just stopped what could have been the worst air disaster in American history." Emily shrugged lightly. "Let's make sure it's the last one." Ryan walked up, removing his own helmet. "Not bad, kid. 2 planes saved in a week. You thinking of joining the Air Force?" She smiled. "I think I already did." Unofficially. They both laughed, exhausted but alive. Days later, news networks across the world ran the same footage. The girl who twice defied death in the skies. The headlines read, "Emily Carter, the calm that saved 2 flights." Congress awarded her the Civilian Medal of Valor, and the Air Force offered her a special scholarship in aerospace defense. But during the ceremony, as cameras flashed, Emily's eyes drifted to the horizon through the hangar's open doors. High above, contrails crisscrossed the morning sky, reminders of how fragile peace could be. Ryan noticed her silence. "You okay?" She nodded slowly. "Yeah, just listening." "Listening to what?" "To the sky," she said. "It still whispers when something's wrong." He smiled. "Then we'll keep listening with you." The 2 stood there, a veteran, pilot and a 20-year-old, girl who had changed aviation forever. Some heroes wear uniforms, some carry calm hands into chaos. And somewhere in the endless blue, the radio still echoes her call sign.